施錠をしたとはいえ、こんな古い木の扉なんて簡単に破られるだろうな。
Yo, what's up guys? Matthew here, back at it again with another board game review. Today, it's gonna be a little bit different. Today, you're probably looking at the title of this video and going, board game? What? Dear Matthew, why are you looking at a PC game when you're clearly supposed to be reviewing board game of the physical kind? Now, I know what you're thinking. I know that's a thought in your head. That's a thought circling in your head. If you're not typing it, you're thinking it. Well, let me tell you something. I decided to choose this game because of how much it can resemble a physical game. Today, we're going to look at 100% orange juice.
100% オレンジジュース
Now, from appearances, you might be looking at 100% orange juice as in, like, what is this, like, anime the game? And you're not 100% orange juice, but you're not 100% wrong. However, the game has a lot more depth than what it appears to be. If you show a distaste to anime culture, to just anime in general, then you might look at this game and think, I don't want any part of it. I want to be a part of this culture, this disease that we live in, this lifestyle. But maybe after watching this review, you might change your mind. So what is 100% orange juice? Well, for one, it's a PC game, and in fact, it's a really cheap PC game, anybody can buy. And two, it's a game that could transcend itself into a physical board game. Potentially. But let's get into what it's all about. Essentially, I went into the game under recommendation of Gabe, and we all know Gabe from our monthly sketch show. Gabe loves this game, and he couldn't speak more highly of it. So I had to test it out. And being that I am a board game guy, the appeal of the board game aspect with the game caught my eye, for sure. When I opened up the game, I got this kawaii-ass intro, and that's when you know. That's when things are gonna get weird up in here. When I started a new profile. I called myself Clue Junior Sucks. Seemed appropriate. So the first thing I had to check out was definitely the campaign. So obviously there's going to be a single player campaign with all of this. When you're starting a new save file, you're given a choice of 4 characters. You have QP, Suguri, Mark, and Kai. Kai was considered the easy character, so obviously I went with him because you know me, I'm a scrub, I'm a filthy casual. Catch me in the park. Catch me in the park, and I'm going to run away if you're going to ask me to fight you, because I don't want to fight, because I'm a filthy casual. So upon starting a new game, even if it's in campaign or if it's just in like a single play, you're going to be put to a loadout, which you're going to be given a choice of cards. So part of this game is deck building and building and using cards to help you win the game, essentially. When you buy the base game alone, because there are expansions that will give you more boosters, more cards, whatever, upon starting the game, you're given just a very base set of cards. Not a lot of cards, and not a lot of amazing cards either, but they're all right. They're not terrible. So you get to choose the cards you want in your deck. You only have a limited amount of cards you're allowed in your deck. So, choose the ones that work for you, essentially. The stars on the left side of the card are going to be representative of when you're allowed to use them. And we'll get into stars and objectives later. But essentially, the lower the cost of the card, the easier it will be to play. That just makes sense. So the better cards are going to cost more than the not as good cards. In terms of deck building, I wouldn't worry too much at the beginning of your game. in terms of like what cards you want. As you'll play more and more of the game, you can earn more cards and start crafting the deck that you want. However, you know, as far as the gameplay goes, especially early on, you definitely do not have to rely as much on cards in terms of just, you know, luck and good rolls. Once you've selected the cards that you want in your game, then you're ready to start playing. When you start a game, you're going to be sent to a map in which there are 4 corners on it, and there will be 4 active players in the game, including yourself. The starting space that you start on is considered your home space, and each player has their own space on a corner of the map. And your home space is going to be the place where you're going to be completing objectives and starting new ones. You can also use your opponent's home space in order to do the same thing. However, the difference between your home space and your opponent's home space is that you don't have to land exactly on your home space. So if you move around the board and you get back to your home space, you actually don't have to land on it exactly. As long as you're passing through it, it will ask you, do you want to stop at home? But for your opponent's home spaces, you have to land on them exactly in order to do whatever the home spaces do. There are 2 types of objectives in the game: collecting stars or winning a certain number of battles. Like I said, your home spaces are going to be giving you objectives. So as you play the game and you complete objectives, you have to stop on your home space or your opponent's home space to redeem the objective that you've completed and then start a new one right afterwards. So it sounds pretty simple, right? Well, it is. But also, it's a game of luck, so anything can happen. So how do we collect stars in the game? There are a few different ways, and if I miss anything, it's probably because I haven't played the game enough to see these things. But from what I've gathered in the games that I've played, you can collect stars like so. You can land on a yellow space, which will let you roll to get a star bonus. Playing certain cards can give you stars in certain areas. Winning a battle against an opponent can give you stars. Or winning in combat, I believe. The second type of objective is winning battles. So there are red spaces on the board, which are called encounter spaces. And those spaces will allow you to battle a random enemy. Not your opponent, but just like a random enemy that's part of the encounter space. And winning a battle against those enemies will give you a win, which will be counted onto your score. Also, beating opponents, same thing, will give you a win, and you can cash those in terms of your objectives. So how do you win the game? Well, you have to be the first to complete 5 objectives in order to win. At the start of the game, everyone's going to start with 1 star, and if you notice beside your avatar, you'll notice like a row of stars, and you'll notice there's 5 on the board, and 1 of them is filled in. So everybody starts with 1 star, and as you complete objectives, you will gain a new star onto your avatar. Once all the stars have been filled, as in all 5 have been filled, then you have to complete an objective once more in order to actually win the game. So it's still 5 objectives to win. And as you gain more and more objective stars, the objective requirements become larger and larger. So while you might start out by just collect 20 stars or win 5 battles, it's gonna end up progressing to collect 200 stars, win 15 battles, sort of thing. What other spaces are there in the game? Well, there's blue spaces, and blue spaces you roll to lose stars, so you don't want to land on those. Purple spaces will warp you to another purple space. Green spaces will allow you to draw a card from your deck. This is a heavy dice-based game, so essentially you're going to be rolling all the time. At the start of your turn, you roll the dice to move to a space, and then you resolve the space, and oftentimes resolving the space will require you to roll a dice. It also has very classic dice combat rules, so the number of the dice will represent the amount of attack you're throwing at an enemy versus the amount of defense you might be blocking an enemy from. And it's also the number on the dice plus any stats you have in terms of your attack, defense, and so on and so forth. And that will be added to the total on the die. Pretty simple stuff. Again, luck-based. It's hard to really move the battle to sway the battle into your side unless you have the cards to do it, really. In terms of the stars that you collect, in terms of your objectives, that's what I'm talking about. So, like I said, the more objectives you complete, the better cards you can basically play. So how you build that deck is up to you. You can play cards before you move and also during combat. And there's really no other like requirements than that. As long as you have the right amount of stars, then you're good to go to play a card in that phase or whatever. You can only have a hand limit of 4 cards. So upon drawing a 5th card, it'll ask you to get rid of one of the cards from your hand. Late into a game, and I'm not sure if this has to do with the amount of turns that have gone by or the amount of players that have reached like 4 stars. The red spaces will turn into boss spaces. So the reds being the encounter spaces. Instead, you're going to be encountering a boss enemy that's a lot more tankier and a lot harder to defeat. At this point, I would just stay away from them. Honestly, I've tried it. I've tried beating them, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. I had a really lucky roll with one of them, and then I squandered it. So, no, it's not happening, man. And other than that, that's really the game. It's a very core concept board game style, like RPG, I suppose. You could call it potentially. I played a couple of matches. So I lost the first match, won the second one, and then won the third one. The first match went horribly because I was still learning the game, and I definitely squandered a lot of potential of winning because I just didn't know what was going on. The second game went a lot better once I knew how to play, but I didn't play it in a campaign. So, missed out on an opportunity to unlock the next chapter. But it went well, and if you play a single-player game, you can actually control like how much random events you want to happen. If you make all random events like random, or like you don't set them to be a certain thing, then like every turn something's gonna happen, and like it was chaos, but I still won. And that I like that aspect of let's like make this really chaotic, or let's just make this like a light game. You can really control how much RNG you want the game to work with. Then the third game I played, went back into story mode, beat it on a clutch. I just want to say, okay, clutched the win so hard. It's getting so close, and then I got it. It looked grim, but that shows you have to believe in yourself. Gotta follow your dreams. The game has an online mode where, obviously, but I didn't really like it. There was no solo queuing option, at least as far as I could find. You had to just find a lobby, go in, and then wait for their game to finish before jumping in and being a part of the next game. So I think, I don't know how big the community is in 100% Orange, but I think a solo queuing option would be, ideal, because then it would make me want to go into online more than just finding a server and hoping that server will be fine. So I don't know. As far as playing with your friends via LAN or however, that's fine. I think getting your friends online to play this is great. And just it's a good board game to play on the computer, honestly, I think. And that leads me to my final conclusion, and that is, can we turn 100% orange juice into a physical game? It's kind of complicated. I mean, the answer is definitely yes, but also, is it worth it? Does it help you relive the experience that the PC game does? And and my answer is we'd really have to see to find out. I would love to see a physical copy of this. In fact, if there was a physical copy of this game, I would have bought it and reviewed that instead of the PC. But this is kind of the point of the video, is I just wanted to generate a discussion on whether or not you could take something like 100% orange juice and turn it into physical. And I think it can be done. The way the game is set up, the card system, everything, it doesn't heavily rely on, the PC to do the work. While there are, obviously they do take liberties in terms of like, this is a game, so we're going to add game stuff to it. But if you take the base game, the core of the game, you could technically turn it into something physical. And the question is, does that make sense? Can it be worth it? And I'd like to find out. I'd like to see and see what we can get out of it. Overall, do I think you should buy this game? And I would have to say, for the price, the base price, yes, it's so cheap. For a game like this, it's so cheap, and you can get a lot of hours out of it. Yeah, I know that the game's cheap because it's going to be asking you to pay more into their booster packs and into more cards and stuff like that. But you don't need to buy cards to make this game fun. You don't need to build the best deck to make this game fun. Unlike other PC card games, this one is kind of like less reliant on the cards and more reliant on, hey, just enjoy the board and see what happens. It's a fun game to see what happens and whether or not your rolls are going to be good or not. And I like the aspect of it not being too frustrating for me. Like, sometimes the games like these are super frustrating, just in terms of losing all the time because, like, you know, you have control of how to lose, and you're like, I'm bad at this game, I'm bad. But in this game, there's really no skill involved. It's kind of just like, let's see what happens. And if you lose, it's like, oh, well, I lost. And, you know, there's not really a big deal because you don't feel like you've lost skill. You don't feel like you have, like, downranked your ability to play games. It's more just, you know, you just a fool to RNG. And maybe some of you don't like that aspect, but I actually don't mind it, at least for this game in particular. I think this game, while it's heavily reliant on luck, it doesn't hide the fact that it's reliant on luck. Unlike, you know, like certain Mario parties and stuff like that, where there's this illusion that, like, you can have the skill to beat it, when in turn it's just like, roll a dice, see what happens. But in 100% Orange Juice, they don't hide the fact that it's gonna be random. It's gonna be like, see what happens. I mean, like, there's no skill. Just play the game, have fun. And I think that's important. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, leave a like. And of course, subscribe if you want to see more of these videos in the future. Yeah!